Good morning and welcome again. My name is Joy Culpepper and I'm a part of Culpepper Livestock, and I come on here and I do educational talks on anything to do with livestock. But like I say in all my videos, I am not a veterinarian, so anything I say on here is solely based off of my personal experience. If you have any questions or concerns, always reach out to your veterinarian first. If you have livestock, they're going to be your best friend. Now, let's get into today's goat talk topic. So I have had a request to talk about stunted growth in goats, which has led me to want to talk about mineral deficiencies in goats, and specifically copper deficiencies in goats. So for goats, copper is a micronutrient which is needed for multiple bodily functions of goats. It's going to help with their immune system. It's going to help with parasite resistance, specifically in the barber pole worm. Research has shown that on the barber pole worms that it can help reduce the load by up to about 75%. It doesn't eliminate it, but it does help with it. It has to do with skeletal muscular growth. Their whole body needs copper. Now, sheep, on the other hand, need copper, but their requirements are much less. Cattle need copper, but their requirements are higher. So when you are looking for a mineral for a feed, make sure it is specifically goats get a goat feed and mineral, sheep get sheep, cattle get cattle, because their requirements are all different. If you have a mixed herd, this is where you can start seeing some of these issues. Symptoms in a newborn with a copper deficiency. If mom was copper deficient, the offspring will be. Babies born very weak. Babies born with swaybacks. They might be unsteady. They may have some skeletal issues. And if the issue isn't seen right away, most of the time they don't live too long. But if the issue is not necessarily seen right away, or they weren't necessarily born with it, but the deficiency kicked in soon after birth, they're not going to gain weight. The bones are not going to grow correctly. They will be stunted. Now, I will say copper deficiency and copper toxicity symptoms are very similar. So now we're going to get into how you could potentially fix a copper deficiency, but you have to be very careful. So in a feed for a goat, you're going to want anywhere between 15 to 20 parts per million in your bag of feed. So always read your labels. And your mineral, you're going to want about no more than 1,500 parts per million. This is going to give them the requirements that they need. Now, copper in goats has not been studied a whole lot, so there's still a lot of guesswork when it comes to copper. So there's 3 ways your goats can get copper. So you've got your copper sulfate, which is a powder, and that can be added into water. You've got your copper glycinate, which is in an injectable form, like in a multi-min. And then you've also got your boluses, which is copper oxide, and those are little pieces of copper. And basically you give it to your goat as a bolus, and I will say this is probably one of the safer ways, and it will line the inside of the stomach, and it is a very slow release. So if you have an animal that is severely deficient, I would go with a copper bolus, because if you give them a huge amount of copper all at one time, it can cause way more damage than good, as copper likes to store in the liver. Okay, so copper stores in the liver, and when it stores in the liver, that can lead to a whole other issue, which is called dumping syndrome. So they will store all the excess copper, and then when something stressful in their life happens, a major weather change, they give birth, just anything super stressful, this copper can dump into their system and cause a major toxicity and can eventually lead to death. So be very cautious with the amount of copper that you give. Now, please don't quote me on this, but if you were doing multi-min, be very careful with it, because I've kind of heard through the grapevine, so I don't know if this is completely accurate or not, but that a lot of the veterinarians have left multi-min, so they don't actually have any staff veterinarians now doing the formulas. So I've heard people say that the multimin's having different reactions now, so just be cautious with it. When I do use multimin though, on a large doe, I will not give more than 1 cc, because that line between a deficient animal and going over to the toxicity side, that line is so close, I do not want to dare cross over it. So a small animal, I only give a half cc. A larger animal, I only give 1. I do prefer a copper bolus. It's a little more work, but I do like copper bolus because it is a slow release. Now, if you have an animal that is very weak, do not give multimin. It is going to be too much in their system, absorbed way too fast, and it will end up killing them. So do not do multimin on an animal with a very low FAMACHA score, an animal that is super thin, an animal that is just not well. It's got to be given to a healthy animal. Okay, now I personally have not used the sulfate, which is the powder form. You can add it into water, so I'm not going to talk about that because I have no experience with it. One of the best things I would say is to keep a mineral out year round, a goat mineral for goat, sheep for sheep, cattle for cattle, mineral with the proper amounts of copper year round. I know the Little Avalon Farm has a mineral buffet. We've used that before, had pretty good luck with it. The Durafirm Conception Aid mineral, they have specifically goats, sheep, cattle. Those are really good minerals to look into, but a mineral year round is probably going to be one of the easiest things to do. Second favorite is going to be the copper bolus because it is slowly released depending on how deficient you are. Some people do every 6 months, some people do once a year. I've even heard severely deficient areas that people have done every 3 months, like do it quarterly. So that's just going to depend on the area that you live in. So, like I said, minerals is going to be the easiest. Copper bolus. I have not used the powder form, the copper sulfate, so I can't specifically talk about that one. I really like the boluses as well because it is slow release. If I do have an animal that is down or really struggling to fight parasites, a copper bolus is going to be my go-to. So hopefully this helps. So now with talking about toxicity, with the deficiency issues, now let's talk about a potential secondary copper deficiency and what can cause it. So while copper is needed in their diets, there are other minerals that, depending on where you live, that you may actually be getting adequate copper and between the forage and the diet and the minerals you have out, but other minerals can adversely affect the absorption of copper. So this is something new that I learned a few years ago. So this is called, these minerals are called copper antagonists, which is they prevent the proper absorption. These minerals are lead, manganese, cadmium, molybdenum, iron, all of these, and sulfur. All of these can affect how your copper is absorbed. So if you are really high in some of these, it's going to mess up how the copper is absorbed. And this goes back to where I say it is extremely important to get a good mineral, specifically a loose mineral, a goat for a goat, a sheep for a sheep, a cow for a cow, because these are balanced. They're ready to give. You're not going to have too much of one or the other. So if you're still having deficiencies, but you've got a good mineral out, you may want to look into having your hay, your forages, and even your soil potentially tested, because if it's high in one of these other minerals, it could be affecting the copper absorption. So I know this is a lot to take in, so feel free, save this video. That way you can refer back to it. Talk to your vet if you need to, reach out to me. I'm here to help you guys. I hope this helps. If you have had anything that's happened with you, drop a comment. Let me know if you've had other things that have worked. I'm always open to suggestions as well. I hope this helps those who are completely new to it or who may be having different issues, specifically with, a potential copper deficiency. And like I always say, guys, reach out if you need help. Talk to your vet. If you have any questions, let me know. Drop a comment, like, share this, go like our page, and you guys have a blessed day.